October 1944, the Pacific, early morning. A faint mist hovers over the horizon, concealing the vast Japanese fleet anchored near the Philippine archipelago. Sunlight glints off steel hulls and gun turrets, reflecting a calm that belies the storm to come. An American dive bomber streaks across the sky, barely 200 feet above the water, engines screaming, propeller blades slicing the morning haze. Inside the cockpit, the pilot grips the controls with white-knuckled precision. His eyes scan the fleet below. Carriers, battleships, cruisers, and transport vessels all lined in disciplined formation. The roar of anti-aircraft guns from distant ships erupts, tracer rounds cutting the air like deadly threads, yet he maintains a perfect glide path, unflinching, calculated. The first bomb is released. It plunges through the mist, striking a carrier deck with a thunderous explosion, sending a plume of water and fire into the sky. Crewmen scramble, alarms wail, and chaos erupts across the fleet. This is the opening of a campaign that will stun Japanese admirals and alter naval engagements forever. The pilot banks sharply, disappearing behind the rising sun, readying for his next strike. By late 1944, the Pacific theater had become a vast, grueling expanse of conflict, stretching from the Philippines to the Solomon Islands and beyond. The Imperial Japanese Navy, once dominant, faced mounting pressure from relentless Allied advances. U.S. forces, bolstered by experience from previous island-hopping campaigns, aimed to disrupt Japanese supply lines, neutralize fleet concentrations, and secure strategic positions for future operations. Every engagement had immense consequences. Each ship sunk could tip the delicate balance of naval supremacy. Japanese fleets were heavily armored, with layered anti-aircraft defenses designed to repel high and low-flying attacks. Carriers, battleships, and cruisers formed tightly coordinated formations, their decks bristling with AA guns and trained gunners. Intelligence reports often overestimated the security provided by such formations, failing to account for agile, daring tactics executed with precision at extreme risk. It was within this context that the extraordinary campaign of a single American pilot emerged. A campaign that would expose vulnerabilities even in the most formidable fleets. Aircraft technology played a central role. U.S. dive bombers and low-level attack planes had been refined. Through years of combat experience, these planes offered maneuverability, speed, and the capacity to release ordnance with remarkable accuracy. Yet, executing low-altitude attacks against heavily defended targets was perilous. Pilots had to navigate enemy fire, turbulent weather, and the unforgiving ocean surface, all while maintaining precise trajectories to ensure maximum effectiveness. A single miscalculation could result in catastrophic loss. The human dimension was equally critical. Pilots underwent rigorous training in navigation, bombing techniques, evasive maneuvers, and psychological resilience. They learned to anticipate enemy reactions, gauge distances in rapidly shifting perspectives, and make split-second decisions that balanced aggression with survival. The preparation of the pilot central to this narrative was meticulous. Months of training, simulated attacks, and reconnaissance missions ensured he understood the fleet's patterns, the timing of anti-aircraft rotations, and the optimal approach angles for each strike. Strategically, low-altitude attacks served multiple purposes. Beyond the immediate destruction of enemy ships, they instilled fear, disrupted command structures, and forced enemy crews to divide attention between operational tasks and survival. Intelligence intercepted from Japanese communications would later reveal growing concern and confusion in response to these audacious attacks. The psychological impact was as decisive as the physical destruction. The operational environment demanded adaptability. Ocean currents, wind patterns, and weather conditions introduced variables that could either aid or hinder precision attacks. Foggy mornings offered concealment. Glare from the sun could obscure vision. Timing, therefore, became a critical factor. Missions had to be planned to exploit environmental conditions while minimizing exposure to concentrated fire. Coordination with Allied reconnaissance and support units enhanced effectiveness, allowing the pilot to strike with both precision and surprise. By the time the pilot approached the Japanese fleet in October 1944, the stage was set. The ships, confident in their layered defenses and historical superiority, were unaware that their most dangerous threat would not arrive en masse but as a single, highly trained individual, navigating the skies with unerring calculation. Each element, human skill, technological capability, tactical insight, and environmental awareness converged to create an opportunity that would redefine expectations of what a single pilot could accomplish against a heavily fortified fleet. The tension in the Pacific had reached a crescendo. Allied planners understood that bold, unconventional actions were necessary to accelerate the weakening of Japanese naval power. The conditions were dangerous, the risks extreme, but the potential gains were monumental. The pilot's imminent approach would demonstrate, in stark and undeniable terms, how courage, skill, and meticulous preparation could alter the course of a theater-wide conflict. This foundation of strategy, technology, and human resolve leads directly into the preparations and early maneuvers that set the stage for the pilot's first strike. The weeks leading up to the attack were a calculated choreography of preparation, reconnaissance, and precision planning. Allied intelligence had identified a concentration of Japanese warships near the Philippine Sea, including carriers, battleships, and transport vessels. Intercepted communications and aerial reconnaissance allowed planners to map fleet positions, identify defensive patterns, and anticipate potential responses to an attack. This intelligence formed the backbone of the pilot's mission, a single strike designed to maximize destruction while minimizing exposure. The pilot's training was exhaustive. Months of carrier operations, low-altitude flight simulations, and live-fire exercises honed his reflexes and judgment. He studied ship silhouettes, understanding which vessels would require priority targeting and the optimal approach angles for each. Timing was critical. Anti-aircraft rotations, flight paths of defending aircraft, and environmental factors such as glare and sea spray all had to be integrated into a split-second plan. The smallest miscalculation could be fatal, not only for the pilot but for the strategic outcome of the mission. Aircraft choice further influenced the operation. The U.S. Navy's dive bombers, designed for accuracy and low-altitude maneuverability, offered the capability to navigate the fleet's defenses while releasing ordnance with deadly precision. The pilot's plane had been modified for weight optimization and stability, ensuring that each bomb released would strike with maximum effectiveness. Maintenance crews double-checked engines, control surfaces, and targeting systems, aware that even minor mechanical failure at 200 feet could spell disaster. The environmental context added both risk and opportunity. Early morning fog provided concealment, while sun angles could obscure the pilot's approach from lookouts and gunners. Ocean swells introduced instability, demanding split-second adjustments to maintain trajectory. Every mission rehearsal accounted for these variables, embedding adaptive responses into the pilot's instinctual reactions. Weather reports and tide patterns were scrutinized to ensure the moment of attack coincided with the most favorable conditions. Beyond mechanics and environment, the human factor loomed large. Courage, focus, and mental resilience defined the operation's potential success. The pilot had to remain calm under intense fire, navigate through chaos, and execute maneuvers that left no room for error. Psychological preparation involved visualization exercises, mental rehearsals of worst-case scenarios, and strategies for maintaining composure while observing destruction unfold below. The pilot understood that this was not merely a test of skill, but a demonstration of human capability in the theater of modern warfare. The Japanese fleet, for its part, was confident in its layered defenses. Carriers bristled with anti-aircraft guns. Battleships projected intimidation through armor and firepower. Crews were trained for rapid response. Drills reinforced readiness, and patrol aircraft circled overhead. Yet despite this preparation, the fleet remained vulnerable to unexpected tactics. Low-altitude strikes exploited blind spots, gaps in coordination, and the limits of human reaction under pressure. The pilot's strategy relied on exploiting these vulnerabilities, striking with precision before the fleet could mount an effective defense. On the morning of the mission, all elements converged. The pilot took off from a nearby carrier, engines roaring against the thin morning air. Navigation instruments confirmed positioning. Visual observation verified fleet location. A calm, methodical assessment preceded every maneuver. As he descended to 200 feet above the water, the immense scale of the fleet became apparent, carriers stretching like islands, battleships projecting dominance, and smaller vessels filling gaps with disciplined order. Each ship represented not only a tactical target, but a symbol of strategic strength. Every preparatory detail, from intelligence gathering to mental conditioning, pointed toward a single objective: execute a low-altitude strike that would stun the Japanese admirals, destroy as many vessels as possible, and reshape naval operations. This was the culmination of weeks of planning, practice, and human ingenuity, and the moment of action was imminent. The meticulous coordination and preparation set the stage for the extraordinary human and technological performance that would follow. The first dive, the first strike, and the unfolding chaos of the fleet's reaction marked the beginning of a historic series of attacks. The pilot's actions were a testament to human skill, courage, and resilience. Flying just 200 feet above the ocean demanded unparalleled focus. Every second required precise control, adjusting for wind, ocean swells, and shifting sun glare, while simultaneously monitoring the fleet below. The human eye had to judge distances accurately, the mind had to calculate trajectory, and reflexes had to respond instantly to anti-aircraft fire. Fear was constant, but mastery over it defined effectiveness. The pilot's heartbeat synchronized with the engine's roar, each pulse measured, each maneuver deliberate. Years of rigorous training had built muscle memory and mental discipline, allowing him to execute maneuvers instinctively. Yet beneath the calculated calm, awareness of mortality loomed. One misstep could result in a fiery crash into steel hulls or plunging into the ocean. The human element, resilience under extreme pressure, transformed mechanical aircraft into an extension of the pilot's will, enabling feats that would otherwise seem impossible. Strategically, the mission exploited weaknesses in Japanese naval formations. By approaching at low altitude, the pilot bypassed most radar detection and minimized exposure to long-range anti-aircraft fire. The fleet's layered defenses were designed for medium to high-altitude threats, leaving blind spots that could be exploited with speed and precision. The attack relied on precise timing and sequencing. Ships closest to the approach vector were struck first, creating confusion and forcing gunners to divide attention. Subsequent strikes targeted critical vessels such as carriers, whose destruction would demoralize crews and disrupt command structures. Tactical planning extended beyond individual targets. It anticipated fleet responses, exploiting chaos and maximizing the impact of every bomb. The result was not only physical destruction, but a systemic disruption of defensive coordination. The aircraft itself was an advanced instrument of war. Equipped with precision bombs and lightweight modifications, it could navigate extreme low-altitude paths without compromising stability. Engine reliability, reinforced control surfaces, and optimized weight distribution allowed the pilot to maintain consistent glide paths while compensating for environmental challenges. Bomb design and deployment mechanisms were equally critical. Ordnance had to detonate at exact moments to breach armored decks and sink vessels efficiently. Mechanical reliability, aerodynamic considerations, and targeting accuracy converged to create an unprecedented lethality for a single airframe. Technology amplified human skill, converting courage and calculation into decisive destruction across the fleet. Leadership played a crucial role both in planning and execution. Allied commanders entrusted a single pilot with extraordinary responsibility, reflecting confidence in skill, training, and judgment. Orders were precise yet flexible, emphasizing initiative within a framework of strategic objectives. Decisions taken at the top, target priorities, timing of strikes, and coordination with reconnaissance enabled the pilot to operate with autonomy while remaining aligned with broader operational goals. On the Japanese side, command structures faced unprecedented stress. Fleet admirals, confident in layered defenses, were suddenly forced to respond to attacks that bypassed conventional detection and countermeasures. Communication lines were disrupted, orders lagged, and decisions had to be made in fragmented chaos. Leadership effectiveness was tested under extreme pressure, revealing both the limits of hierarchical control and the psychological impact of unexpected precision attacks. The Japanese fleet, though formidable, possessed vulnerabilities inherent to its structure and expectations. Anti-aircraft defenses were optimized for conventional assaults, not audacious low-altitude strikes by a single, highly skilled pilot. Crew members trained for standard drill procedures found themselves reacting to a threat that defied assumptions, creating delays and errors. The surprise element amplified damage. Ships that would normally have coordinated defense were disoriented, Gunners fired at rapidly moving low-flying targets with reduced effectiveness. Intelligence reports later revealed that the fleet had underestimated the possibility of an individual aircraft inflicting such concentrated destruction. This imbalance between expectation and reality magnified the pilot's impact far beyond raw ordnance. The human and psychological dimensions of this mission were profound. The pilot faced extreme risk, but remained focused on mission objectives, demonstrating mental resilience under life-threatening conditions. For Japanese sailors, the attack shattered confidence, instilling fear and uncertainty in equal measure. Witnessing destruction from such precision challenged assumptions about naval invulnerability. The moral shock extended beyond the immediate loss of life and vessels. It undermined morale, introduced hesitation into decision-making, and demonstrated the outsized effect a single individual could have on a massive, complex organization. Psychological warfare, though unintentional, became a critical byproduct of this extraordinary operation. The first strike commenced in the early morning haze. At precisely 0630 hours, the pilot leveled his aircraft at 200 feet above the water, engines vibrating with controlled power. Below, the Japanese fleet stretched across the horizon, carriers and battleships lined in disciplined formations, unaware that a single attacker could threaten them so directly. The pilot released the first bomb, striking the deck of a light carrier. The explosion erupted with a deafening roar, sending fragments of steel and fire into the air. Crewmen scattered, alarms blared, and anti-aircraft guns scrambled to respond. Yet, at this extreme low altitude, many gunners were unable to depress their barrels fast enough, leaving large gaps in the defensive coverage. The strike was precise. The carrier listed to one side, fires igniting on multiple decks, signaling the beginning of widespread chaos. Without hesitation, the pilot adjusted his trajectory, banking sharply to avoid concentrated fire from nearby cruisers. He released a second bomb on a heavily armored battleship. The blast ripped through the deck and penetrated armor plating, damaging critical systems and setting the superstructure ablaze. Smoke curled into the sky, obscuring vision and complicating coordinated defensive response. Japanese admirals issued commands, but communication lagged as confusion spread across the fleet. Each subsequent approach targeted strategic vessels, a transport ship loaded with supplies, another carrier, and a cruiser positioned to provide defensive cover. The pilot's movements were fluid, calculated, almost artistic in execution. He exploited the fleet's blind spots, moving with speed and precision, forcing Japanese crews into reactive maneuvers that reduced their effectiveness. Every bomb hit altered the tactical landscape, breaking formations and creating openings for further strikes. Explosions sent shockwaves through the water, and the auditory chaos became a rhythm to which the pilot adjusted his maneuvers. Debris, flaming lifeboats, and smoke columns became visual markers for targeting, guiding each successive release with deadly accuracy. The fleet, once a symbol of invulnerability, now appeared fractured, reacting to threats in a state of disoriented defense. The pilot's skill at low-altitude navigation was unmatched. Flying barely above the waves, he had to compensate constantly for sudden gusts of wind and turbulent air currents caused by explosions below. His eyes remained fixed on the target, hands steady on controls, mind calculating trajectory, speed, and release timing simultaneously. Each strike was executed with meticulous precision, transforming the aircraft into an instrument of focused destruction. Japanese gunners adapted, but their efforts were hampered by the pilot's unpredictable approach. Vectors and rapid release sequences, smoke and debris created visual interference, further diminishing targeting accuracy. Ships attempted evasive maneuvers, yet in the confined formations of the fleet, movement was restricted. The pilot capitalized on these limitations, systematically selecting targets and striking with unparalleled efficiency. By mid-morning, 4 Japanese vessels had been critically damaged or sunk. The fleet's morale faltered as the realization set in that a single attacker, defying conventional expectations, had inflicted such disproportionate damage. Radio communications reflected growing alarm. Officers called for concentrated anti-aircraft fire. Fighter cover scrambled to intercept, but each countermeasure was either delayed or misdirected. The pilot continued his assault undeterred, exploiting every opportunity to weaken the fleet further. The first phase, of the attack demonstrated not only the lethal combination of human skill and technological capability but also the strategic effectiveness of low-altitude precision strikes. Each bomb, each maneuver compounded the psychological pressure on Japanese commanders and crew. Chaos, disorientation, and mounting losses created a cascade effect, ensuring that subsequent attacks would encounter progressively less coordinated resistance. As the first strikes concluded, the pilot banked sharply away from the fleet, circling back for a second run. The fleet remained operational but disorganized, fires burning, communication lines strained, and anti-aircraft fire inconsistent. The initial impact had set the stage for total disruption, establishing the conditions necessary for the decisive continuation of the mission. The unfolding of these early attacks demonstrates how a single individual, using training, precision, and audacity, could redefine naval engagements and instill profound psychological shock. Each strike brought both physical devastation and a realization among Japanese admirals. Traditional assumptions about fleet defense were no longer sufficient. The second phase of the attack began just after 800 hours. The pilot circling the damaged fleet evaluated the situation with keen observation. Fires raged across decks, smoke pillars rose into the sky, and the fleet's once rigid formations were fragmented. Japanese gunners attempted to re-establish control, but the low-altitude approach rendered many anti-aircraft guns ineffective. Radar and lookouts struggled to track the aircraft's rapid movements, allowing the pilot to exploit gaps and weaknesses. He descended again to 200 feet, banking sharply toward a cluster of transport vessels. These ships carried supplies essential for sustaining Japanese operations in the Philippines. A precise bomb hit the lead transport, igniting fuel stores and munitions. The explosion rocked nearby vessels, creating debris fields that further restricted mobility and defensive coordination. Each hit compounded confusion, demonstrating the tactical brilliance of low-level assault against tightly packed fleets. The pilot then targeted another carrier. Using smoke from previous explosions as visual cover, he maneuvered over open water and released ordnance with meticulous timing. The bomb struck amidships, detonating near the flight deck and storage hangars. Fires spread rapidly, engulfing planes and supplies. Sailors scrambled to contain the inferno, but chaos prevailed. The carrier listed, its operational capacity severely compromised. Japanese command reacted frantically. Admiral communications reflected disbelief. Impossible. One plane? Orders were dispatched for fighter interception and concentrated anti-aircraft fire. Yet the pilot's unpredictable flight path allowed him to evade nearly every countermeasure. Each maneuver, banking, diving, climbing, was calculated to maximize survival while ensuring the destruction of high-value targets. Between 0830 and 1000 hours, the pilot systematically attacked additional vessels, prioritizing carriers and cruisers. 4 more ships were critically damaged, with 2 sinking outright. The fleet's defensive cohesion had collapsed. Ships that could have provided mutual support now operated in isolation, and gunners, overwhelmed by rapid successive attacks, fired ineffectively. Environmental factors continued to play a role. The rising sun created glare that obscured the pilot's approach from certain angles. Ocean swells introduced turbulence that demanded constant correction. Yet these variables were anticipated, integrated into pre-mission planning, and exploited to the pilot's advantage. His understanding of natural and tactical conditions turned potential hazards into tools of precision and control. By mid-morning, the psychological impact on Japanese crews was unmistakable. Fear and uncertainty permeated the fleet. Sailors had been trained for coordinated defense, but the audacity of a single low-flying attacker sowed hesitation. Communication breakdowns delayed coordinated responses, allowing successive strikes to inflict maximum damage. The pilot's mastery of timing, trajectory, and strategic targeting created an almost hypnotic rhythm of destruction. At 10:30 hours, the pilot approached the final group of high-value targets, a battleship and 2 remaining carriers. Explosions from previous strikes had reduced visual cover for the fleet, yet the pilot navigated skillfully, releasing bombs with unerring accuracy. The battleship suffered critical damage to its propulsion system, rendering it immobile. Both carriers were set ablaze, one listing heavily, signaling near-total operational incapacitation. By 1100 hours, the 15th ship had been destroyed or incapacitated. The scale of destruction was unprecedented for a single pilot in low-altitude combat. Japanese admirals were forced to confront the stark reality. A combination of human skill, tactical ingenuity, and technological capability could overcome even the most formidable defenses. Communication logs later revealed repeated expressions of astonishment and disbelief, highlighting the psychological as well as physical devastation inflicted by the mission. The pilot disengaged, banking sharply to retreat toward friendly airspace. Smoke plumes and fires marked the aftermath of his attack, transforming a disciplined fleet into a chaotic tableau of destruction. Allied reconnaissance would later document the full extent of damage, confirming the extraordinary success of a solo operation against a heavily defended enemy force. This turning point, the culmination of careful planning, fearless execution, and precise targeting, shifted the balance of naval power in the region. It demonstrated that conventional assumptions about fleet invulnerability were no longer absolute, and that individual initiative could produce strategic results that rivaled large-scale coordinated attacks. The impact extended beyond immediate destruction. Japanese morale suffered, operational planning became reactive rather than proactive, and strategic vulnerability in the Pacific became undeniable. The attack set a precedent, influencing subsequent Allied tactics, emphasizing the efficacy of precision strikes, and redefining expectations for what skilled pilots could achieve in high-stakes combat scenarios. The pilot's extraordinary feat concludes the climactic phase, leaving the fleet fractured, crews demoralized, and command structures scrambling to respond. The scene was now set for analysis of consequences, operational shifts, and the long-term implications of a single individual's impact on the course of the Pacific War. The immediate aftermath of the attack revealed both tangible and psychological consequences. Allied reconnaissance confirmed that 15 Japanese vessels had been sunk or critically damaged, including carriers, battleships, and transport ships. Fire still smoldered on several decks, smoke curling into the sky as survivors attempted to contain damage and rescue crew. Casualty reports indicated hundreds of sailors killed or injured, a stark testament to the operation's effectiveness. Beyond the physical destruction, Japanese Naval Command faced a profound crisis. Admiral communications expressed disbelief and shock at the scope of damage inflicted by a single low-altitude attacker. Standard protocols for fleet defense were exposed as insufficient, and orders for reorganization, repair, and reinforcement consumed hours that might have been used for operational response. The psychological toll on commanders and crews was significant, undermining confidence in previously reliable defensive measures. For the Allies, the attack reinforced the value of precise intelligence and meticulous planning. Intelligence teams, having identified fleet positions, coordinated timing, and mapped vulnerabilities, witnessed the payoff of their detailed efforts. The pilot's success validated months of rigorous training, the development of low-altitude attack strategies, and the investment in specialized aircraft modifications. Lessons learned would inform subsequent operations across the Pacific theater, emphasizing the integration of human skill, technology, and tactical insight. The morale impact was equally significant. Among U.S. forces, reports of the pilot's success spread quickly, highlighting the effectiveness of training, innovation, and daring initiative. Sailors and airmen recognized the transformative potential of individual skill applied in a high-stakes scenario, inspiring confidence and a renewed belief in the strategic capabilities of Allied forces. Meanwhile, Japanese strategists confronted the stark reality that conventional defensive postures could be exploited by unexpected tactics. Battleships and carriers, previously seen as near-invulnerable icons of naval power, had been rendered vulnerable by a combination of audacity, planning, and precision execution. Discussions in command circles emphasized the need to reassess fleet formations, anti-aircraft coverage, and low-altitude defense measures to prevent similar losses in future engagements. Repairs and reinforcements began immediately, with damaged vessels pulled to nearby ports where available. The logistical strain was considerable. Ports capable of accommodating large warships were limited, and supply lines were stretched. Each day spent in repair reduced operational presence in the Pacific, creating opportunities for Allied forces to exploit gaps in Japanese control. The psychological aftershock of the attack, coupled with tangible loss of vessels, had an outsized strategic effect relative to the number of ships involved. The pilot himself returned to carrier-based operations, having completed one of the most audacious and effective missions of the Pacific Campaign. Debriefings highlighted not only the technical and tactical success, but also the mental and physical discipline required to execute a low-altitude, high-risk strike against a heavily defended fleet. His experience would inform training protocols for future pilots, emphasizing precision, decisiveness, and adaptability under pressure. Civilian and military observers alike would later describe the attack as a turning point in naval aviation. It showcased the effectiveness of small, well-trained teams, or even individuals, leveraging intelligence, environment, and technology to achieve strategic outcomes disproportionate to their size. The engagement became a case study in the value of preparation, courage, and innovation in modern warfare. The immediate consequences were clear. Japanese fleet capability was compromised, command confidence shaken, and Allied morale bolstered. Yet the full scope of impact extended beyond this first assessment, influencing operational planning, naval doctrine, and strategic expectations in the months that followed. As the days following the attack unfolded, the longer-term consequences became increasingly evident. The Japanese Navy, already strained by losses in prior Pacific engagements, faced critical challenges in restoring fleet readiness. Damaged ships required extensive repairs, diverting resources from other strategic theaters. Ports capable of accommodating large warships were limited, forcing the Japanese command to prioritize repair schedules and relocate operational assets. The cumulative effect was a temporary but impactful reduction in naval presence and influence in contested areas. Casualty reports painted a grim picture. Hundreds of sailors had perished or been wounded, overwhelming onboard medical teams. Surviving crew members faced not only physical injuries, but psychological trauma, having witnessed the extraordinary destruction inflicted by a single pilot. This human toll contributed to a decline in morale across other fleet units, as stories of the attack spread. Anxiety and apprehension became pervasive, influencing the readiness and responsiveness of remaining ships. For Allied forces, the operation became an exemplary demonstration of strategic efficiency. A single pilot operating at low altitude with precision bombing techniques had achieved results that rivaled larger fleet engagements. Commanders incorporated the lessons into broader tactical doctrine, emphasizing the effectiveness of specialized training, innovative attack methods, and the exploitation of environmental and technological advantages. Intelligence teams were reinforced, and low-altitude attack strategies were refined to replicate similar successes in subsequent operations. The Japanese Naval Command conducted internal reviews, scrutinizing fleet formations, anti-aircraft coverage, and operational protocols. Recommendations included increased emphasis on low-altitude defense, enhanced radar coordination, and revised training to prepare crews for unconventional attack profiles. Yet despite these measures, the psychological shock lingered. Confidence in fleet invulnerability had been irrevocably challenged, creating a climate of heightened caution and defensive posturing. Reports from Allied reconnaissance flights provided visual confirmation of the extensive damage. Smoke continued to rise from sunken or listing vessels, their presence a stark reminder of the pilot's impact. Analysts noted the strategic ripple effects. Japanese forces hesitated in areas previously dominated. Operational timelines shifted, and planning for offensive actions became constrained by the need to compensate for losses. The attack had redefined local power dynamics and created temporary opportunities for Allied maneuvering. On a human level, the pilot's achievement influenced morale across Allied forces in the Pacific. Stories circulated in barracks and aboard carriers, emphasizing the effectiveness of skill, courage, and calculated risk. Training programs highlighted his methods, reinforcing the principle that individual excellence could yield disproportionate results. The mission became part of the lore of naval aviation, inspiring subsequent generations of pilots to pursue precision, creativity, and bold execution in the face of formidable challenges. Strategically, the attack forced a reassessment of vulnerability. High-value ships, once thought nearly impervious to single aircraft attacks, were now recognized as susceptible to well-planned, low-altitude precision strikes. Japanese naval doctrine evolved in response, integrating new defensive protocols and adapting to the demonstrated threat. However, these adaptations required time and resources, during which Allied forces could exploit the temporary strategic advantage. The broader significance extended to Allied planning for the Pacific theater. Commanders understood that training, intelligence, and audacious execution could deliver outsized results. Operational plans increasingly incorporated elements of low-altitude attack, surprise engagement, and precision targeting, maximizing impact while minimizing exposure. The psychological component, instilling fear, uncertainty, and caution among enemy forces, became a recognized element of strategic advantage. By the conclusion of the aftermath phase, the attack's significance was clear. The destruction of 15 ships by a single pilot had not only immediate tactical and operational consequences, but also long-lasting strategic and psychological effects. Japanese fleet capability had been temporarily diminished, Allied morale elevated, and naval doctrine adjusted to reflect new realities. The stage was set for reflection on how individual initiative, technological mastery, and tactical ingenuity could shape the broader trajectory of warfare. The attack stands as a remarkable testament to the interplay of human skill, courage, and innovation in the midst of modern warfare. One pilot relying on precision training and audacity demonstrated that even vast and well-defended fleets were not impervious to determined, calculated action. The destruction of 15 Japanese ships from a mere 200 feet above the water reshaped tactical thinking in the Pacific, forcing commanders to reconsider assumptions about vulnerability, risk, and the limits of conventional defense. Beyond the immediate damage, the psychological impact was profound. Japanese sailors and admirals were confronted with the unexpected reality that a single individual could redefine the operational landscape. Morale, discipline, and confidence, all intangible but essential components of military effectiveness, were shaken. Conversely, Allied forces witnessed firsthand the power of training, precision, and initiative, reinforcing the principle that skill and courage could amplify technological capability far beyond raw numbers. This engagement also underscores the evolution of warfare in the 20th century. The fusion of intelligence, technology, and human adaptability transformed what might have been a routine strike into a decisive, game-changing event. It highlights the importance of adaptability, foresight, and daring in military operations, showing that even the most formidable forces can be challenged by unconventional methods executed with precision. On a broader level, the attack serves as a reminder of the human dimension in war. While machinery, ordnance, and fleets are essential, it is the individuals behind them, their decisions, their resilience, their ability to act under pressure, that often shape outcomes. This mission illustrated how courage and skill, applied in harmony with technology, could produce results that reverberated far beyond the battlefield. In the end, the legacy of this operation is not merely counted in ships sunk or missions completed. It lies in the enduring lesson that innovation, bravery, and meticulous execution can redefine strategic realities, influence morale, and alter the course of conflict. For historians, strategists, and military planners, it remains a vivid illustration of the extraordinary impact a single, determined individual can have on the tides of war, echoing through both tactical doctrine and collective memory. Subscribe for more true stories that remind us of what it means to be human, even in the darkest of times.